Hi, my name is Donna Jarrell. I'm author of The Radical New Me. I tell about my son's tragic felony DUI accident in my book. I also share how God showed me to literally carry a torch for felony DUI reform. Yes, God showed me that He hears the cries of our felony DUI inmates. That's why I'm so passionate about sharing with you right now all the reasons why felony DUI offenders are not violent criminals. That's what I'm fighting for. Now, I've never said that there's not to be any consequences. There are definitely serious consequences. But every legislator that I've spoken to agrees with me that they're not violent criminals. So I'm going to go over the reasons, and you can go to www.donnajarrellministries.com where all these reasons and many more are listed. Are DUI offenders violent criminals? South Carolina felony DUI offenders are classified as violent criminals, and they have to serve 85% of a max 25-year sentence. They get no parole and no work or good behavior credits. Now, this is unlike our sister states in the Fourth Circuit jurisdiction. Our sister states are all non-violent, and they get good work behavior credits, and that would be 51% if they do get the credits. Now, there's much lower sentences. You have Maryland, which is 5 years, Virginia, 10 years max. And then you have West Virginia, 15 years, and North Carolina is 17 years. Their max sentences are much lower than South Carolina's 25 years. So here we see South Carolina, where you serve 85% of the 25 years, which is 21.25 years. But then you see the sister states in our Fourth Circuit jurisdiction, where they serve 51% of the much lower max sentences. So no person or offender in the sister states serves no more than 8.5 years max versus South Carolina 21.25 years max. Quite a discrepancy there. So South Carolina needs to be more consistent with our sister states and all of our other states in our nation, which the majority, it is non-violent, even when it involves serious injury or death. Felony DUI in South Carolina is on the violent crimes list. We're under extreme drug crimes in the highest level A category. Now, felony DUI includes legal drugs, legal prescription drugs, and illegal drugs and alcohol. Now, why are these offenders not violent criminals? All right, the Supreme Court in an article, DUI, crime of violence, so the Supreme Court gets it right, the court said. A crime of violence required a higher mental state than the merely accidental or negligent conduct involved in a DUI offense. The requirement of the use of physical force against a person necessarily involves intent to use that force. Now, how can one be accidentally violent? They just can't. Okay, I want to also mention SCDC Director Brian Sterling, another reason. He spoke to House Legislative Oversight Committee in 2019. Here's what he said about our felony DUI inmates. Felony DUI inmates have no pattern of criminality, and they have not committed any other crimes other than DUI. No pattern there of being criminals, criminality. And then when they leave prison, he says they don't come back, and then inside a prison they cause no trouble. And they're placed in level 3 prisons, level 3, highest category prison with gang members and armed robbers, other violent criminals. 8th Circuit Solicitor David Stumbo spoke at the Senate Corrections Penology meeting in 2017, saying that he says that when he looked at the violent crimes list, felony DUI is the only group from the violent crimes list that stands out that he would consider for earlier release and include for reform. He just said they're not violent people. And he said they're no threat to the public. They have no criminal motive, he says, in a car accident, and never intending or wanting to hurt anyone. Okay, so with Brian Sterling, this sounds like a non-violent role model inmate to me, where they cause no trouble and they never come back. In the same car accident, if a person is injured, they're going to be a non-violent criminal. 51% they serve non-violent of a 15-year max in South Carolina. But if the result's death in that same car accident, all of a sudden you're not non-violent criminal anymore, you're a violent criminal serving 85% of 25 years. Now, felony DUI can be sentenced to more years than a person who intentionally shoots someone. Violent criminals, we know that they attack and they kill and they rape and they assault, they stab, they shoot their victims intentionally, knowing that they're hurting them. With felony DUI, we're talking about a car accident. Punishment for 25 years, serving 85% does not fit this crime. With these long, harsh sentences, inmates, they're death sentences. They are. When you stay in prison that long, it takes years afterwards to even be able to bounce back, be rehabilitated, or re-enter society successfully. So families need these nonviolent incarcerated loved ones. They need them coming home with earlier releases. We want to talk about texting drivers now. Texting drivers along with your drunk and drug drivers by the National Highway Traffic Safety Association, NHTSA, calls them distracted drivers. They all have car accident victims. They both, think about it, the texter, they both swerve and they back in the vehicle or they run the red light that results in a person's death. Both. Alcohol causes one to have an inability to make wise decisions or choices. They don't comprehend these dangers with a dull mind. But think about your texting drivers. They have a phone addiction and they have a sober texting mind. They know the dangers and they have their hands off the wheel and their mind and eyes off the road. So texters, this is NHTSA says, they are 6 times more likely to get in an accident than your intoxicated drivers. 6 times more likely. Now we see that they both, texters and the drug drivers, they have no criminal motive to hurt anyone. But there's still, of course, loss of life with the car accidents. There's a minor penalty for your texter. But then for the felony DUI offender, they are now violent criminals facing 25 years. Now this can happen to anybody. It can happen to anybody of any age, race, sex, socioeconomic status. It can be a grandmother, a grandma in Somerville. She left a restaurant and was charged with felony DUI. A son at a graduation party, or your young teenage daughter, or you or your spouse celebrating at a wedding, or holidays, over the holidays. Many people say to me all the time, but by the grace of God, this could have happened to me. We're talking about people like you and me who overdrink, maybe social drinkers, or some may be alcoholics, and they get in that car to drive. Now, these harsh South Carolina sentencing penalties, they've failed to prevent our DUI deaths in South Carolina because we're 3rd in the nation for DUI deaths per 100,000 residents in our nation. South Carolina, we're among one of the worst states for drunk driving. So we can see these harsh sentencing penalties, calling them violent criminals. It has not deterred or stopped these deaths at all. Why? Why is it not? Because penalties never prevent a crime when the person intending, they don't intend to commit the crime. A person that's committed this crime, there's no intention. I wanted to say that we have been wrongly placed, felony DUI, on the South Carolina violent crimes list. They have no violent intent, ever planning or wanting to hurt anyone. They never imagine that their drinking of alcohol would cause such a tragedy. And many drunk drivers themselves, we know, die in the accident, and their loved ones, their fiance, their brother, their best friend dies. They never get in that car intending for it to be a weapon to go find somebody to kill. They themselves can be killed, or loved ones in their car. They have to live with themselves. We find that they're very remorseful and sorry. Many are suicidal. We have to look at the heart. We have to look at the intent. And they have no violent intent. They're just not violent people or violent criminals. Now, we need to be consistent with our sister states and most every state in our nation, and we need to classify our felony DUI as non-violent like everyone else. Why South Carolina? It used to be involuntary manslaughter, 5 years, non-violent. So I'm calling on South Carolina legislators to change these unjust felony DUI laws to be consistent with our other states. A violent crime to a non-violent crime is what we are asking. So I thank you for your time, and I hope that you go to my website, www.donnajarrellministries.com, and check out all these reasons why this law needs to be changed. Thank you very much, and God bless.